A coworker keeps on catcalling and sexually harassing me, so I ruined him. His name was Ruben. He worked in accounts receivable 2 rows behind me at a packaging distribution company, where I had been an inventory analyst for 4 years. He transferred in from another branch in January and started on my floor on the first Monday of February. By Tuesday, he had already told me I should wear my hair down more often because it made my face look softer. By Wednesday, he asked if I had a boyfriend, and when I didn't answer, he said that was a shame, because a body like mine shouldn't go to waste. I didn't react. I didn't flinch or blush or look up from my screen or tell him to stop. I kept my face the way it always was, neutral and focused on my spreadsheet. That seemed to bother him more than anything I could have said. He was the kind of man who needed a reaction the way a machine needs fuel. He needed the embarrassment or the anger or the nervous laugh or the polite smile women give when they want a situation to end without conflict. I gave him nothing. He treated that like a challenge. He kept testing the line. He escalated each time my face stayed level, looking for the threshold that would finally make me drop the mask. He didn't find it. By week 2, he was pulling his chair to my desk during lunch, his knee touching mine under the table. I moved my chair. He moved his closer. I stood up and ate in the break room. He followed me and sat across from me and talked about my body like I wasn't attached to it. He told me I had the kind of hips made for holding and that whoever ended up with me was going to be a lucky man. Ingrid from shipping was at the next table. Tomas from warehouse was at the counter. Both of them looked at me. I kept eating. Ruben kept talking. By week 3, he was touching my shoulder when he walked past. Not a brush. A full hand that slid down to the middle of my back before lifting off. He did it every time he passed my desk, and he passed my desk at least 4 times a day because the printer was behind me. He started printing everything he could think of. Reports he didn't need, blank test pages, copies of emails he could have read on his screen. He invented reasons to walk past me, and every single time I sat completely still. He hated that. Each time I didn't react, the next touch lasted longer or landed lower. I learned which hour of the day he tended to be at his desk, and which path through the office let me avoid the corridor he used. I built a map of him without mentioning him to anyone, the way an analyst builds anything, by tracking it. Ingrid saw it happen on a Thursday. She was walking toward my desk, and Ruben let his hand drag from my shoulder blade down to my waist and rest there for a full second. She stopped walking. She looked at me. I looked at my screen. She didn't say anything to me, but the following Monday she moved her lunch break to the same time as mine and started sitting next to me. Tomas began refilling his water bottle near my desk more often than a person could need water. A third coworker named Dawn, who sat near the printer, started keeping track of how many times Ruben walked past my desk per day. Nobody told me they were doing this. I worked between them for weeks without knowing I was being seen. I thought I was holding the line alone, and they were just neighbors at desks doing their jobs. They had been doing their jobs and watching mine. By month 2, Ruben was emboldened. He started making comments without lowering his voice. He told me during a team meeting that I looked good in my blouse and should wear that color more often. Our manager Anita was in the room. She paused the meeting and asked him to keep his comments professional. He said he was just being friendly. Anita moved on, but she started walking the floor more after that. She saw him one morning with both hands flat on either side of my keyboard, boxing me in while he asked what I was doing that weekend. I didn't look up. I didn't lean back. I continued typing as if he were furniture. He stood there for almost a full minute waiting for me to acknowledge him, and when I didn't, he slapped the desk lightly and walked away. Anita saw all of it. By month 3, he stopped being careful. He commented on my body in the elevator when a senior operations manager named Franklin was standing right behind us. Ruben didn't see him because Franklin had stepped in at the last second. Ruben told me my pants fit like they were painted on, and that I was torturing every man on the floor by walking around like that. Franklin didn't say anything in the elevator. He got off on the 4th floor and went straight to HR. That same week, Ingrid, Tomas, and Dawn each went to HR independently on separate days. None of them coordinated. Ingrid described the touching. Tomas described the break room comments. Dawn had a written count of how many times per day Ruben visited the printer, which averaged 9 times compared to the floor average of 2. Anita submitted her own account describing the meeting and the desk incident. 5 people reported Ruben without me asking a single one of them. I had never gone to HR. I had never filed a complaint. I had never told anyone what was happening because I didn't need to. He performed his behavior in the open every day because my silence made him think no one was paying attention. He mistook my blank face for permission. I had given him the only weapon I had against him, which was the refusal to give him anything else, and he had spent 3 months mistaking that for a green light. The only person who couldn't see it was him. HR called him in on a Friday. I didn't know about it until Monday, when I walked onto the floor and saw his desk empty. His chair was pushed in, his monitor dark, no jacket on the back of his seat. About 20 minutes later, Anita pulled me into a small conference room and told me a formal investigation had been opened. 5 separate complaints filed independently last week. I said, 5? She nodded. Ingrid, Tomas, Dawn, Franklin, herself. I sat there trying to understand. 5 people who watched every day and never said a word to me had gone to HR on their own. Nobody asked them. They just did it. I had spent 3 months believing I was handling it alone, that my silence was a wall I built by myself and stood behind by myself. And the whole time there were 5 other people on the other side of that wall making sure someone heard. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel like crying. I felt something open up in my chest that I didn't have a name for. It was like finding out a door I thought was locked had been unlocked the whole time. Anita told me HR had brought Ruben in Friday. His response was to deny everything. He told them she and I are friends, we joke around, she's never told me to stop. Anita's face got tight. That's what men like him count on, she said. Your silence used as his shield. He had built his entire defense out of my composure, my stillness, my refusal to react. All the things I thought were protecting me, he had already turned into proof that nothing was wrong. To Ruben, a woman who doesn't scream is a woman who doesn't mind. She slid Dawn's log across the table. 3 months of dates running down the left column, times in the next, tally marks in the third. Some days had 4 marks, some had 7. One Tuesday in March had 12. Floor average calculated at the bottom in Dawn's neat handwriting, 2. Ruben was averaging 9. Dawn had sat near that printer every day and watched him walk past me again and again, and instead of saying something to me or making a scene, she she just started counting. She turned his behavior into data. She built a pattern out of his obsession and put it on paper where no one could argue with it. She never told me. She never asked me if I wanted her to. She just did it, quietly, the same way I had been quiet, except her silence was a weapon, and mine had only been survival. Anita said Ruben had been placed on administrative leave pending the investigation, and HR wanted to interview me Wednesday. I went home Monday night and started writing a timeline of every incident I could remember, columns and rows the way an inventory analyst tracks anything. Dates, incidents, witnesses where there were any. My memory was better than I expected. When you don't react on the outside, everything gets stored on the inside. I had all of it. Every word, every touch. Every time he stood too close and waited for me to flinch. When I laid it out across the dining table, it didn't look like scattered moments. It looked like a pattern so obvious the only person who could have missed it was someone who didn't want to see it. Wednesday at 10, I sat in HR's office across from a woman with a notepad and a man with a laptop. I walked them through it from February. The hair, the boyfriend question, the break room comments, the shoulder touches, the desk, the team meeting, the elevator. I read from my notes when I needed to, but mostly I just talked. Then the HR man looked up and asked if I had ever told Ruben directly his behavior was unwelcome. I said no. Had I ever filed a complaint? No. Had I reported any of this to my manager before the team meeting? No. Each answer felt heavier than the last. I could feel his defense building in the gaps between my answers. She never told me to stop. She never complained. She never reported it. 3 months and she never said a word. I could almost hear that easy, confident voice he used when he told HR they were friends, when he made my silence sound like a handshake instead of a wall. The room felt smaller. The air felt thicker. I said, I handled it. It wasn't affecting my work. The second the words left my mouth, I wanted to pull them back. I had packed 3 months of harassment into a sentence that sounded like it wasn't a big deal. I had given them exactly what Ruben would want, the impression that if I could handle it, maybe it wasn't that bad. The HR woman tilted her head and asked me to clarify what I meant by handled. I looked down at my 4 pages, then I put them on the table and folded my hands over them. I didn't need the paper anymore. 3 months of data was already in my body. I said, I didn't handle it. I survived it. Every day I came in knowing that man was going to touch me or comment on my body, and I made the decision to keep my face blank because if I reacted, he would have enjoyed it. That wasn't handling it. That was the only option I had that let me keep my dignity. The fact that I didn't scream doesn't mean it wasn't happening. 5 people in this building saw it. 5 people reported it. The only person pretending it didn't happen was him. The HR woman set her pen down and said, that is exactly what we needed to hear. The HR man stopped typing. He took his hands off the keyboard and looked at me, and there was something on his face that wasn't pity and wasn't sympathy. It was the kind of look you give someone who just stood up after being pushed down for months and said, here I am, and I remember all of it. They went through every incident on my timeline and matched my dates against the witness accounts on the laptop. Ingrid's description of the shoulder-to-waist touch matched mine down to the day. Tomas's break room dates matched. Dawn's high-frequency weeks corresponded to the weeks the touching got worse, because those were the same weeks. Anita's account matched my timeline exactly. Franklin's elevator account was almost word for word what I had written. 5 people, 5 different angles, 1 picture. I walked out of that room and the hallway felt wider than it had when I walked in. I hadn't just told my story. I had broken apart the one defense Ruben was counting on. He told them I never said stop. He was right. I never did. But 5 people had said it for me, and now finally, I had said it myself. Saturday morning, I opened my personal email and found a message from an address I didn't recognize. 4 words. You're going to regret this. A throwaway account. He had pulled my personal email from the company directory. I took a screenshot. I saved the email. I printed it. I didn't reply. I didn't text anyone. I didn't call Anita. I didn't panic. He wanted a reaction through a screen the same way he wanted one in person, and I gave him the same thing I always gave him, which was nothing. But this time, my nothing came with a paper trail. Monday, I drove in 30 minutes early and put the printout on the HR woman's desk. She read it. Her face went still. She said he had accessed personal information through company systems while on administrative leave. Separate policy violation on top of the investigation. Do not respond, she said. We will handle it. That same morning, Ingrid told me she had seen his car in the parking garage, lower level near the east stairwell. I went straight to Anita. She called building security from her desk and had his badge access killed before lunch. Tuesday, she pulled me aside in the hallway by the supply closet and told me Ruben had retained a lawyer. The letter to HR claimed the 5 complaints were coordinated retaliation for a workflow issue Ruben said he had raised in his first month. He was framing himself as the victim. I told Ingrid first. Her face went red, not pink, red, like something hot had flooded it. I have a daughter, she said. I reported him because I watched him slide his hand down your back like he owned you. Nobody told me to do that. I did it because it made me sick. I found Tomas near the warehouse corridor. He listened, quiet, and then said, I reported him because no woman should have to eat lunch listening to a man describe her body like she's not sitting right there. He can say whatever he wants. I know what I saw. I went to Dawn at her desk. She tilted her head and almost smiled. The way a person smiles when something is so dumb it barely deserves a response. I have a spreadsheet with dates and times, she said. His lawyer can explain why a man needs to visit the printer 9 times a day when the rest of us go twice. Franklin came to me on Wednesday on his own. Steady, deliberate, the way he always moved. I heard he is claiming we all conspired. I want you to know I walked into HR on my own because what he said to you in that elevator was one of the most disrespectful things I have heard in 30 years at this company. I don't know you well. I don't need to. What he did was wrong and I reported it because it was the right thing to do. One nod, then he walked back to his office. I sat at my desk after he left and thought about where things stood. 5 accounts. 5 people who didn't coordinate, didn't plan, didn't use the same language, and didn't describe the same incidents. Ruben's lawyer could call it a conspiracy all he wanted, but a conspiracy requires coordination, and these 5 had not even filed on the same day. That isn't a conspiracy. That is 5 people with working eyes. HR scheduled the final review for the following Monday. Everyone was asked to attend. Sunday night, I called my older sister. She picked up on the second ring. We talked about nothing for a few minutes, her kids, a recipe she tried that didn't work, and then she asked how I was feeling about tomorrow. I told her the truth. I wasn't nervous. That was what scared me. I thought I would be shaking. I wasn't. I just wanted it to be over. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You're not nervous because you've been carrying this for 3 months and you're tired of holding it. Tomorrow you put it down." I didn't say anything. I pressed my lips together and stared at the ceiling, and I felt something build behind my eyes that I hadn't felt in a long time. I didn't cry, but I came close. It was the first time anyone had said something about what I had been going through that didn't come with a question attached. She didn't ask me what happened. She didn't ask me to rank it on some scale. She just acknowledged that it was heavy, that I had been carrying it, that tomorrow I could stop. Monday morning I wore the blouse Ruben had told me I looked good in. Not for him, for me. The blouse was mine before he ever opened his mouth about it, and after today it was going to be mine again. The parking lot was half empty. Ingrid was at the water cooler when the elevator opened on my floor. She gave me a nod. Tomas came in from the stairwell with his jacket over his arm and raised his hand in a small wave. Dawn walked past with a folder under her arm. Franklin was already standing outside the conference room with his arms folded. None of them had planned to arrive together. Ingrid caught me at the door. She said, "We've got you." Then she stepped back. I took a breath, a real one, the kind that fills your lungs to the bottom. I walked in. Ruben was already there at the far end of the table wearing a tie. In 3 months, I had never seen him in a tie. He looked like a man wearing a costume of someone who follows the rules. His lawyer sat next to him with a leather folder. 2 HR reps at the head, a woman from legal at the far end with a laptop. I sat across from Ruben and put my hands flat on the table the way he used to put his hands on either side of my keyboard. He did not smile. He did not comment on my body. He sat perfectly still, and what I saw on his face for the first time was fear. The HR woman opened a folder and said she would read the 5 complaints in the order they had been received. Ingrid's first, the touch on the Thursday in week 3, my face when it happened, how I didn't move, Tomas's account next, the break room comments, the way I kept eating while a man described my body, then Dawn's. The HR woman didn't just read it, she held up the spreadsheet, pointed to the columns, and read the numbers out loud. 9 versus 2. She let it sit. Anita's came after, the team meeting, the desk, then Franklin's, the elevator, almost word for word. The room was silent. Ruben's lawyer cleared his throat and said the complaints were clearly coordinated. He said Ruben had filed a workflow report his first month, and these complaints were retaliation. He said the complainant had never told Ruben to stop, never filed a complaint of her own, never indicated his behavior was unwelcome. He said Ruben believed their interactions were mutual. My client was under the impression that he and the complainant had a cordial working relationship. Franklin cleared his throat. Not a polite cough, the sound a man makes when he has heard enough. He looked at the lawyer. Cordial? He told her in front of me her pants looked like they were painted on and she was torturing every man on the floor. That's not cordial. That's predatory. I have been with this company for 30 years. Don't tell me what cordial looks like. The lawyer's pen was no longer steady. The HR woman turned to me. I stood. I hadn't planned to. I had been sitting for 3 months. Sitting while Ruben touched me. Sitting while he talked about my body. Sitting while he boxed me in. I left my folder on the table. I didn't need it. Ruben told me on his second day that my body shouldn't go to waste. He touched me every time he walked past my desk. He followed me to the break room and described my hips to my face. He boxed me in at my desk. He told me what to wear. He told me how to look. And when I didn't give him a reaction, he escalated. I never said stop because I shouldn't have had to. He decided my silence meant yes. It didn't. It never did. The lawyer leaned forward. If it was so distressing, why didn't you report it yourself? I looked at him. I didn't look away. Because 5 people already did. I didn't have to. Every person in this room saw what Ruben did and decided on their own that it was wrong. That's not a conspiracy. That's a consensus. Dawn lifted her folder. I have 3 months of data right here. Dates, times, frequency. Would you like to explain to the room why your client visited the printer 9 times a day? The lawyer did not answer. Ruben closed his eyes. Ingrid spoke. I watched him slide his hand down her back like she belonged to him. I didn't need anyone to tell me to report that. I have a daughter. I reported it because I never want her to sit still while a man does that to her. Tomas was last. I was in the break room. I heard every word. She was eating her lunch and he was talking about her body like she wasn't there. No one told me to go to HR. I went because I couldn't sleep that night. The HR woman asked the witnesses to step out. Ingrid touched my shoulder as she passed. The door closed. The HR woman turned to Ruben. Anything to say? His lawyer whispered something to him. He looked up. I was just being friendly. Same words he had used in front of Anita at that team meeting. Same words he used when HR brought him in the first time. The only defense he had ever had, and he was still using it because he had nothing else. The HR woman looked at him. Mr. Ruben, we have 5 independent accounts, a documented pattern of excessive proximity, an unauthorized access of an employee's personal email, and a threatening message sent from an anonymous account which our IT department has traced back to your home IP address. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. You will be escorted from the building today. A formal report will be placed in your personnel file. If you contact any employee of this company, including the complainant, in any form, the company will pursue legal action. Ruben's face changed. The color left it, not all at once but in a slow drain, like something was pulling it down from the inside. His lawyer closed his folder. Ruben pushed back from the table. His chair scraped against the floor. He walked toward the door, and as he passed me, he stopped, close enough that I could see the knot of his tie. He didn't touch me. He didn't speak. He just stopped, like he was waiting for one last reaction to take with him. I looked at him the same way I had looked at him for 3 months, neutral. Still, my face didn't change. My breathing didn't change. I gave him the same nothing I had always given him, and this time he knew exactly what it meant. He walked out. The door closed. Anita put her hand over mine. Franklin nodded through the glass. The vent kept moving air through the room.